Hi everyone, I'm Sanjay Rahul Janga. I'm from Vaster Devenkath Institute of Technology. Today we are going to learn about the query processing from the database management system. Let's dive into our topic. So, what is a query? What is a query? Query means it is nothing but a request or a question for the data from the database. So, by using the query, we can perform various actions on our data. So we can retrieve the data, we can create the data, and we can insert the data. We can perform various actions on the data by using the query only. So we, for creating the query or for using the query, we use standard query language, the SQL. So the SQL is used to retrieve the meaningful and relevant information from the database. So usually we use the relational database in our system because the relational database is always allowing easy access to the related data points. So since we have learned about the query, let's go into the next point, to the next division of that. So what is the query processing? So since we are going to since I have already said we are going to learn about the query processing, so what is query processing? The query processing is a simple mechanism in which we convert the query into an expression. So the query is actually in a high level language, and we convert the high level language query into the low level language expression by using the query processing. So what is query processing? Query processing is nothing but a mechanism which is used to transfer high level language query into the low level language expression. So whenever we are trying to learn about something, or whenever we are trying to know about something, it is essential to know the purpose behind the topic. So what is the purpose, or what is the need for the query processing? What is the need? So this query processing explains the various steps involving in the execution of the query or retrieving the data from the database. And also query processing is an essential step which ensures us the efficiency and reliability of our relational database. Since I have already said that we are going to use the relational database, this query processing mechanism allows us to ensure the efficiency and the reliability of the relational database. And it is also an important component of the database management system, which allows us means the users of the database, to retrieve the data from the database. So the query processing also allowing the users, which is, as the users can be the administrator, the designer, the programmer, or the end user, or the any user, so to retrieve the data from the database. So so let's know about the steps in the query processing. The query processing has mainly three steps. It has mainly three main phases. What are they? So the first phase is called the parser or the translator. We are going to learn about these phases in detail. So the second one is optimizer, the third one is execution engine, and it is the last one. So let's learn about this in detail. So since let so this is a view of the query processing. So this is a diagram which explains us about the query processing. So as you can see here, we have taken an SQL query. The request we sent to the database. So first it is sent to the parser or the translator. After the work or the operations in the parser, it goes to the optimizer, and optimizer connects us to the database catalog, you can see here. And after the operations in the optimizer, the, the expression is sent to the execution engine for the execution. So we can retrieve the data. You can see here the execution engine connects us to the data. So let's learn about these topics in detail. So the phase 1, since we are already know that the query processing contains three steps. The first one is called the parser or the translator. Why this parser is called translator? Let's know about this. In brief, I can say that this parser takes the query and it you know it refines the query. It means it filters the query so we can understand. That's why it is called translator. So this parser checks the query in a way that it ensures that the query has no errors or no mistakes. And so this parser is also called translator. Why? Because it converts the query into the relational algebra. We all know about relational algebra. Let's learn about the relational algebra in detail in the next video. So here the query is converted into the relational algebra. So the parser, after converting into relational algebra, the parser performs three types of checking operations on the relational algebra. What are the three? So we have the three here. First one, the syntax check. Second one, the semantic check. And the third one is shared pool check. So let's learn about this. First one, the syntax check. First one, the syntax check. As the name suggests, here the parser call. So after converting into the relational algebra, after converting the query into the relational algebra, the parser checks the syntax of the query, whether it is correct syntactically, whether the syntax is correct or not, whether it is valid or not. So let's look at an example here. We have a query called don't mind about the line, I am always bad about. So we have a query here, create table Sanjay, which includes the column serial number, which is an integer, name, which is a variable character of size 20, and branch, which is also a variable character of size 20. So can anyone guess the error in this query? So first of all, this query is sent to the parser and converted into relational algebra, and the syntax is checked here. So here in the query we don't have the semicolon which has to be at the end, which has to be present at the end of the query. In the above query, at the end of it, we missed a semicolon. So we missed a semicolon, and this syntax check checks the query and returns us the error. It has an error, it doesn't have the semicolon, it missed something. So it returns us the missing, what we call term, or missing things we are given here in the syntax check. And next, the second one, the semantic check. In the semantic check, so first of all we check the syntax check, in which we are given the syntax, which is, it is in the perfect form or not, is anything missed or not. So after the syntax got correct, so it has a correct syntax, valid syntax, then it is, the query is passed for the semantic check. It moves on for the semantic check. In the semantic check, it determines whether statement is meaningful or not. So whether the statement is correct, whether the query is correct, but it checks about the meaning, it is the meaningful or not. Means, see, we have an example here. So we have an example, insert into SAN, the table name we are given SAN. The values which have to be inserted are 1, which is an integer, Rahul, which is a character, and CSA, which is a character. And it has a perfect syntax. But you see here we have a table names SAN. So the insertion has to be done in the table called SAN. So in the semantic check, checks the table is present in the database or not. The table is present in the database or not. And these values can be inserted into the particular table if it is present. If it is not present, it gives us the table is not present, or it gives us a message like the table name is not valid, like that. And we have if the table is present, we have inserted 3 values which are correct to syntax, but These three values are inserted into the table in such a way in which they are written. So first, the one is inserted into the first column, Rahul is inserted into the second column. So like that, if the order is correct or not. Here we are given the first one an integer, but in the table SAN, if it is present in the table SAN, the first column may be of a character value, not number value. So it checks like that and tells us whether the semantics is correct or not. Next, the third and most important check, the shared pool check. So after checking the syntax or semantic or the meaning, the query is passed into the shared pool where the query is stored. So the query is stored in a shared pool. So so next, in the shared pool we have two types of parsings. Parser means we are also not parsing or translating. So we here have two types of parsings. First one is soft parsing and second one is hard parsing. What is soft parsing? What is hard parsing? Let's know. Let me explain you what is soft and what is hard. So every query, each and every query we write possesses or has an hash code while executing. While executing, every query has a hash code. So if a fresh query is passed to the share pool and its hash code means it already the hash, as I said earlier, the hash code is produced during execution. If the shared pool contains the query's hash code in it, it means it already executed. So if it is already executed, so it does not have anything to be performed more. I mean, it does not have to undergo any additional steps, so it directly goes to the last phase of the query processing, which is the execution engine. So if it is already executed, directly to the execution engine, so there is no more additional steps needed. It is called soft parsing. But if the query's hash code does not exist in the shared pool, which means the query is not executed yet, the query is passed into additional steps like optimizer or row source generator. This is called hard parsing, means it has to undergo some additional steps to go to the last phase of the query processing. So let's know what are the optimizer and row source generator. And since I already told you, we have three steps in the query processing. And three steps in the query processing. The first one is parser or translator, and in which we have three checks: and syntax check, which is completed; semantic check, it is also completed; next, shared pool check, which is also completed. Syntax check means where we check the syntax, which means the query is in the correct form or not. And semantic means the query is meaningful or not, whether the terms in the query exist in the database, or the data types which are followed are existing or correct or not. Semantic check checks the type. And shared pool check checks the execution engine. I mean, the query is executed or not. If it is executed already, so it directly passes it through the execution engine. So it does not exist in the shared pool, which means it is not executed yet. We pass it to the next steps like optimizer and row source generator. So the phase 1 got completed. And next we are going to the phase 2, which is optimizer. Since I have already told you guys, the optimizer is also one of the steps of the hard parsing. If the query's hash code is not present in the shared pool, which means it is not executed yet, the query is passed to the optimizer. And we have to know one thing, that the database, the DBMS, never optimizes DDL commands unless it has a DML. So the hard parsing always perform for the unique TML commands and their optimization. It is a process in which multiple query execution plan for satisfying a query are examined, and most efficient query plan is satisfied for the execution. We can call the optimizer as the cost of planning for execution a query. So the cost of planning for the execution of a query is given by the optimizer. Database catalog stores the execution plans. So the plan of execution, the cost plan of execution of of the query are stored in the database catalog, and then optimizer passes the lowest cost plan for the execution. So in this one we have already seen that the database catalog and the optimizer are both connected. So the database catalog, so during the optimization, the database catalog stores uh, the database catalog stores the execution plans, and the optimizer takes the lowest cost plan